Hey boyos, just wanted to talk about a certain subject today, and that is fat acceptance and glorifying obesity. I had to take a sip of my coffee. Now, as a lot of you know, unless you've been living in a cave, the majority of people, you just have to go to like Walmart to see, are tremendously overweight. I can take a trip to my local Walmart, and almost half the people I see are tremendously overweight. And a lot of these people, they outweigh me. They look by 50 or even 100 pounds. So they're like close to 300 or close to 350, right? And typically, the people I see that are not overweight or obese are younger people and children and really old people. Now, sometimes I do see old people that are quite overweight, but typically, the really old people that are like 70, 75, they look to be quite thin. Young children tend to be quite thin. Some of them are quite overweight. And young people, like, teenagers and 20-year-olds, look to be, relatively good size. But the majority of my adults in my age category are quite overweight. And I think it's partly because it's a poor area that I live in. And I'll go to Walmart, sit in the parking lot in the vehicle, and I'll see people roughly my age in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and they're wearing a pair of shorts, some really cringy t-shirt, hair a mess, looking close to 300 pounds, like they just got out of bed, you know, and they're stocking up on Doritos, potato chips, and pop, and frozen chicken nuggets and French fries, and potato chips, right? And I've spoken to people who were really overweight over the years, people that were way more overweight than me, and this was during a time when I myself was a healthy body weight, and you know, it was kind of alarming the things that these really overweight people would say to me, right? Because I would try to get to them to explain to me, why they continue on with a dangerous lifestyle as they do, why don't they lose weight, what their thoughts are, and stuff like that. And it was quite alarming. And I classify people that are overweight into two categories. You have people that have only been overweight for a short period of time, a number of maybe a few years, like myself. And generally, those people, they're very overweight. They're usually obese or just overweight or obese, but they'll be 50 pounds overweight or more. And then you have the people that have always been overweight, lifers, I call them, people who have been overweight for life. And those people, they're beyond morbidly obese. You know, they're like, 50% body fat or more, right? They're just a blob of fat, basically. And they've been always overweight, so they think it's normal. And in talking to these people that were tremendously overweight, that are lifers, when I was a healthy body weight, it was quite alarming, right? Because I'd ask them questions about themselves, right, and their lifestyle and why they do what they do and why they don't change. And they speak as if they have some kind of special curse that they can't lose weight. They can't. And they will try to confuse me with what they say. They'll try to confuse me and say things to imply that they're all muscle when they're obviously not. And that if they lost, 50 pounds, they would look like a competitive bodybuilder. And they'll speak about themselves like they're Jesus, like they're different than other people and have a special curse that nobody else carries, right? Like Jesus carrying his cross, that's what they familiarize themselves with. And, it's really just compounded bad habits developed from a young age, almost birth, that they adapted to over time, and they adapted to overeating um, extraordinary amounts of food. And you try to tell them this, and they won't have it. They just don't listen. They keep reverting back to the topic of how, they have a special curse and they're just different than other people. And, you know, they try to imply that if they lost 50 pounds, they would look like a shredded competitive competitive bodybuilder, right? And obviously that's not the case, right? I am drinking coffee at the moment while making this video. That's why I keep going silent for a moment. And I've known very overweight people, and they will talk about losing weight, and they'll have a goal in mind where they want to be skinny. And to them, skinny means being a heavier body weight than I am now. They'll have a goal body weight of 240 or 250 pounds. And it's like, well, at 240 or 250, you're far from skinny. You're far from skinny. And they have it in their head that, they get down to 240, 250, which is still heavier than I am now, that they're going to look like a competitive bodybuilder, right? Because they think big just means big and doesn't mean, shredded or vascular. They think a bodybuilder is big, and I will still be big, and therefore I will look like a competitive bodybuilder. And just like the general population, very overweight people are delusional. And like I said, I've spoken to quite a few obese people, and I don't know if they just try to say things to try to confuse me, to throw me off because it's a sensitive subject for them, or what. But the overweight people I've known, the really overweight people, they avoid going to the doctor's office, and I already know why. Because any normal doctor is going to give a patient shit if they're severely overweight, right? And I myself, being very overweight, but not nearly to the extent of a lifer, um, I have went to the doctors, and the doctor has told me lose weight, right? So I can only imagine to what extent they're telling these people that are tremendously overweight, more overweight than me, what they're saying to them. They're probably really giving them shit and telling them, you're at risk for heart attack, stroke, diabetes, high blood pressure, right? And these really overweight people, they avoid going to the doctors. And that's the thing. They avoid facing the problem rather than confronting it. And really overweight people, they often have no idea how much they weigh. The last time they weighed themselves was at the doctor's office, and the only reason why they did it was because the doctor told them to step on the scale. They will often estimate their body weight to be a certain amount, and when you call them out on it, they're often 15, 20 pounds heavier than that, right? And these people consistently, over years, after not seeing them for a while, they will consistently gain weight over time, right? And yeah, this is more so just a rant about how much I hate fat people. And a lot of you will say, well, that must mean you hate yourself. Well, I am quite overweight. It's unacceptable. And I get gaslighted in my everyday life where people will tell me, you're not overweight. You're not fat. You're not obese. But yet I am. And my goal body weight of like 160 pounds, people will assume that I'm anorexic. Because when you compare somebody who's a normal size to somebody who is absolutely tremendously overweight, Of course, the person who's a normal size is going to look small, right? Of course. And it's a known fact. I don't know how common the knowledge is, but it's a known fact that someone who is in incredible shape is going to look small in clothing, right? And someone who is overweight, um, putting it lightly, is going to look better in clothing than with their clothes off. And I've told people this before that were trying to lose weight. I said, if you feel you look better in clothing than out of your clothing, you're overweight. Because if you are in really good shape, you will look incredible with your clothes off and look small with clothes on. Now I'm just finishing up my coffee, and there was something else I wanted to say. Um, what was it? But yes, I've tried to delve into the workings of a really overweight person's mind and how they think. And I try to tell them, like, you have to restrict yourself with food. You have to diet if you want to lose weight, right? You have to, restrict food choices to healthier food generally, reduce portion sizes, reduce frequency of eating, don't eat emotionally. And I have literally had really overweight people say that it sounds like slavery, restricting themselves, because they want to be able to enjoy whatever they want, eat whatever they want, and they don't see the point of life if they can't enjoy it, right? And unfortunately, the thing is, everybody wants to enjoy food that tastes good. But as with anything, there comes repercussions. And obviously, if you eat very unhealthily, you are going to look the part. You can't lie. And it's interesting because there is a YouTuber that I follow and watch some of his content. I've watched a lot of his content, and he says how you can identify a woman who used to be a sleut, that has likely changed her ways. If she claims she has changed her ways, if she was once a sleut and now says she is not, one way you can identify if she actually probably has changed her ways is if she has underwent any kind of dramatic transformation where she quit smoking, quit drugs, quit drinking, lost a lot of weight, or gotten extremely good shape. Then she has demonstrated that she's able to completely turn her life around. And if they have not done anything like that, not have underwent any dramatic change or transformation in their life, they're probably still asleep, right? They probably have not changed. And I feel that's very accurate, very accurate. Though I have not experienced that for myself with women. But he said it, and he seems to know how women's minds work, so it seems accurate. Um, yeah. But my experience, women that are hardcore into fitness, like going to the gym regularly and are in really good shape, they're not sleuths. The ones I have known. They held themselves to a high standard, right? And they were very chastised. There was something else I was going to say here. Um, but overweight people, like lifers, people that are in it for life, if you say the word big or fat, you can literally see it in them where it's like an electric shock runs through them, and they'll literally jump if you say the word big or fat, referring to anything, not them, referring to anything else, as if somebody electrocuted them, right? Because one thing I have noticed too about really overweight people, they adopt morbid obesity as part of their personality. They accept it as part of who they are. they are the big fat guy and there's nothing they can do about it. That's how they think. Um, and they think that, you know, being a healthy weight is just simply unattainable. And it's not, right? And from my experience with really overweight people, they lie, just as the general population does. That's a big problem, more so with the general population, is most people will lie, right? They're compulsive liars. And really overweight people are no different. They will try to say, I hardly eat anything, right? And when you see how much they eat, it tells a different story, and it tells you everything you need to know about why they're so overweight. They will eat, and when they enjoy a meal, to put it lightly, it's as if they shut everything else off around them. There's no world around them except for them and the food they're eating. They completely shut everything off around them. You can't get through to them. It's like they lock into the food, and that's the only thing that exists while they're eating. And they will eat tremendous portions where they will go back for seconds, thirds, fourths of an already enormous helping of food, right? Um, and the thing is, what they'll do, they'll eat like, they'll have a meal, and then after the meal, they'll have potato chips. After the potato chips, they'll have ice cream. And all the while, through the whole thing, they were drinking pop. And you can see it when they eat. It gives them enormous enjoyment eating. It's like, it's the thing that helps them cope and get through life. And unfortunately for myself, I've somewhat become that way as well. Where when I eat, the food is so good that it's like an addiction. It's like being addicted to drugs, where I need my fix. And identifying that addiction and seeing it for what it is does help a lot with controlling myself and my addiction, right? And I've had some people tell me, you make your overweight problem sound worse than it is. Well, the thing is, I am technically obese, and I don't want to be. It's just when you're used to seeing people who are 40, 50, even higher percent body fat, when you see somebody my size who's like 32% body fat, you assume I'm a regular size when I'm not, right? And I think that's all I want to say. This was more so a rant than actual anything constructive. But thank you for listening in, and I'll see you online.